Prodigal is one of those very unassuming games that when you first look at it, it just seems like a modern retro throwback to the era of the Game Boy Color. But we played through the entire game on stream thanks to a press key provided by the developer, and this is a great example of a very well executed game. Our story is that we play as this man here who, after stealing from their parents, leaving town, and returning after the passing of his parents, he finds his slice of life village where everyone hates him, there's a ghost captain on the loose, there's dungeons all around, and he also needs to make amends, solve the mysteries, and try to find true love all at the same time. So Prodigal is definitely in the vein of Link's Awakening, a Zelda-like style format. The world itself is quote-unquote open. There are several major dungeons, each one you'll have to complete in order to get the tools and items necessary to go to the next one. Now, what's interesting about the game is that there are only 3 items or 3 active items total. You have your kind of grapple hook, you have your glove that lets you teleport to the start of each room, and you have this kind of glove that lets you punch heavy objects and knock enemies back as well. And despite only having 3 items, Prodigal gets a lot of value out of them, specifically with the variety of puzzles that the game offers you. There are a lot of puzzles in this game, probably far more than what we would see from other Zelda-likes. The general gameplay is, again, more on the basic side of this kind of top-down approach. You can only move in the cardinal directions, you have your basic attack, and it can be a little tricky, I have found, to hit some enemies, especially if they're coming at you really fast or from a weird angle. Progression in this game, besides finding these key items, is also completing side quests for the various people, finding upgrades. You can also eat and acquire temporary buffs, as well as getting permanent upgrades as well. And again, the world itself definitely is full of secrets. There are several alternate endings and more. So, with that said, Prodigal is a really great example of just very solid execution among this design. But the game does go a step further in an area that we normally don't see from the genre. And I want to talk about that next. But before we get there, as always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, be sure to check out the following books. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. When we talk about most Zelda-like style games, they are a linear affair. Get through the game, beat the final big bit, see the credits, and you can then shelve it until the next time you want to play it. But since its release, Prodigal has had several notable updates, as well as a very rare example of a new game plus extended feature to it. And it's something that I find just very fascinating for the genre. So the first thing is that when you beat the game, the story is not over. There have been several additional vignettes and dungeons that have been added to the game since its release. At the time of me recording this review now, they have supposedly just finished their final content update for the game, which I have not had a chance to play through all the post-game bonus content yet. There are additional quests you can do, there is a quote-unquote true ending, and there is certainly a lot of value that you get just on that alone that, again, I found just very surprising, because Prodigal is a very unassuming game in that respect, but it is very meaty in terms of content and things to do. Now, the other thing that I didn't get a chance to show on stream, but I did kind of play around on my own, is that there is, in fact, a hard mode, or should I say hard modes, to Prodigal. Once you've beaten the game and you start a new game file, you'll find a mysterious figure at the start who will take you to a strange realm where you can defile various shrines of some of the gods of the land. And doing that essentially turns on very challenging and very different difficulty modifiers. So to go through the list really fast, One basically turns off your ability to find money on the ground, which means it's going to be that much harder to buy items and perks. Another one raises the amount of damage that you receive, also turning off the ability for you to get health upgrades. Yet another one turns on permadeath. Yep, that's right, a Zelda-like with permadeath mode. And then on top of that, the fourth one turns on a death blast or laser blast that will follow you around in each dungeon that you'll need to pay attention to while you're trying to solve puzzles and fight the various enemies. And if you think that's easy enough, putting all four of those on, there's also a shrine to chaos, where if you put this on, every treasure chest in the game will have its contents randomly shuffled. So if you ever want to play a randomizer on top of that, Prodigal has you covered. And maybe someday I'll attempt an entire difficulty masochism run on this game. And that kind of dedication, both with the harder modes and the additional stories, again, really shows that there is a lot to Prodigal. If I had any, serious or just some concerns about the design, one, there are a few puzzles that can be on the annoying side. There was an ice puzzle that I was stuck at for kind of far too long. And like I said in the last part, this game is definitely more puzzle focused than it is combat or action focused. Most of the bosses either fall into being more of a puzzle style fight, or just run around, wait for them to show their weak point or be dazed, smack them a few times, rinse and repeat. The game also features a day-night cycle that determines where characters are in the world, and it can be a little annoying in terms of finding where somebody is, especially if you have certain quests that involve you having to return to them. I also wish that there was a little bit better mapping functionality. You have your world map that doesn't show your position on it, but there are no maps for the dungeons themselves. And this can prove to be a little tricky, as some of the layer dungeons are very wide in terms of their space, especially having things that you can return to with upgraded items to then get further or find additional treasures. But with everything said, while Prodigal doesn't really reinvent the wheel in terms of action-adventure or adventure puzzle or however you want to define the genre, it is still just very well executed. And it's definitely a shout out to the amazing pixel art, especially for the character portraits that you've been seeing in the bottom right. They're definitely a step above what we normally see, and they do a lot to add a lot of depth and personality to the various characters. So if you are a fan of Zelda-likes or action-adventure titles, I wholeheartedly recommend Prodigal for you to check out, and I'm really happy the developers gave me a key to review this one, because again, I was very surprised just how much there is to this game. So with all that said, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to do all that liking and subscribing. If you'd like me to review your game for an upcoming video or store page review, please get in touch. You can check out our Discord and Patreon link down below. And for right now, any donations of $15 or more will get you an acknowledgement for my next book on design. With all that said, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Once again, this has been Prodigal, and until next time, take care.